If you're using one of these pen for your watercolor, or one of these brush, or one of these paper, even though they are thick, stop using right now. I'm going to tell you why in this video. Hi, welcome to my video again. And today in this video, this is very important for the beginners. If you're intermediate or advanced, you can skip this video. But for the beginners, this is crucial important, because I can tell you, if you watch this video till end, it will help you huge. Because when I started, I faced these problems. There are 6 basic problems. If you can avoid, you can easily step up ahead of anyone else in your learning curve. Let's discuss those things one by one. So, very first problem when I started watercolor that I started with just normal piece of paper, the art paper. I went to the store and I bought some pads, watercolor pads, even though I didn't have a look if that's acid-free or if they're cotton paper or something like that. It just felt the thickness of the paper that was thick enough, so I thought it would absorb the water, and I started doing watercolor. And believe me, I had really hard time painting anything in shape. Waters were everywhere, and my paint was going everywhere. I did not have any control of the waters or on the papers. So now I'm going to tell you what exactly you do, even though you're starting for the first time. Do not, remember this, do not compromise on paper. If it costs more, you can buy some student grade paper just to start with. But if you have a little bit control on your wash, and if you have little bit control on your brushes, please go with the 100% cotton paper. I'm going to show you a little demonstration, and I will show you, like I have some just normal paper, and I also have some 25% cotton paper and full 100% cotton paper. I will show you the differences, and then you would know what I mean. So here I have a non-watercolor paper. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a little bit of wash of yellow ochre in here. I'm going to paint exactly the same thing with non-watercolor paper, with 25% watercolor paper and 100% cotton paper. So I will just add now ultramarine blue. I will keep adding it, and the farther I go down, I'm going to add more ultramarine. As you can see, this paper, it cannot hold the water. It doesn't have any tooth. And when I'm adding more values in ultramarine, as you can see how it is reacting. If you see the transition from yellow to the blue, it's visible. It's not a smooth transition, even from the down in the bottom blue to a little bit darker. When I added a bit of burnt sienna, the transition is very visible. It's not a smooth transition. And now if I try to add the waves, if I add more values of ultramarine blue and try to paint some waves, you can see how it works. I will just put that one in there. See, it looks okay now, but you will see how it reacts to the paper. See, it is creating hard edges. It is not creating any smooth transition of your blue. You can easily identify the edges of every single marks in there, which is not good, and that will make you frustrated. That's what did for me. Every time I try to paint on these papers, when I see the other artists, they're having very smooth, nice, juicy washes, and my one is coming up like that. Now take a look at the 25% cotton one. This is student grade watercolor paper. So it is okay. So let's try to do exactly the same thing with yellow ochre. I will just paint the sky, and we'll have a transition off from yellow to blue. So I'll just add ultramarine blue, and I will keep adding ultramarine blue in the water side down at the bottom. So just add ultramarine blue and keep adding ultramarine blue, making it thicker, and then adding a bit of burnt sienna to making it darker, and see how it goes. So adding more and see the transition. It's okay, it's acceptable somewhat, but still it is not creating that smooth transition yet. But 25%, this is workable. If you want to really good hand on your wash, you can try using these paper. These are a bit cheaper, and you can work on those things to have a little bit of idea how these things are. And even the waves, it is not creating hard edges, it's trying to getting into wet effect, and that's understandable, that's okay. But still, that may give you a bit of frustration, because this is not exactly you are after. Okay, now this one is professional 100% cotton paper. I will exactly do the same thing. And as soon as I having those yellow colors on there on the paper, I'm having a good feeling about it. It's so smooth. It has got tooth in it. Because of the tooth, it is creating the good smooth transition of that. Even if I adding those ultramarine blue, and down at the bottom I'll just keep adding ultramarine blue, and you can see that these tooths are holding some paints in there and releasing some of the paints to go into the next stage, to the next layer. And it is also creating those sparkle, as you can see that. So these sort of small little nuances will give you very good confidence on painting the watercolor. Even though I'm adding more paint in there, see the transition, it is happening. It's not, you can't find it like one specific point. Okay, this is where the transition happens. So I'll keep adding more paint, even though I'll add a bit of burnt sienna down at the bottom and making it darker in the end. And then while it is wet, while it is damp, I'll keep adding waves. As this transition, as you can see, this sparkle effect, it created very nicely. And now there, I will just keep adding waves, and as you can see, these are not creating any hard edges as well, and it's having really nice wet into wet smooth transition effect in there. Now let's compare this one with that 25% cotton one and the one which is non-watercolor paper, and you can see the differences. See this transition here, the colors in there, and 25% cotton, see the transitions there as well, you can see. And lastly, that non-watercolor paper, and you can see what is that. That will make you frustrated without any doubt. Change that. Go into 100% watercolor paper. So what paper should you buy? You can go to your art store and make sure it is written on there 100% cotton. The brands may be different because your experiences with the brand may be different than mine, because some people love to do in such some texture, and some people probably love to do in very smooth paper, something like that. So it's just your personal preferences. And I do like rough surface, which is a cold press. So cold press means got that little bit rough surface in there. They're rough paper as well, and also they're hot press paper, which is very smooth one, which is very nice and good for illustrations. Here I have one paper which is Baohong, which I really like it. They are cheap as well. I don't know whether wherever you are watching it from, if you can buy that one, but you can buy it on Amazon. But I'm not sure if you can buy the professional grade one. And from Australia, yes, you can. From all the art store, you can buy the professional grade Baohong papers. Now come to the points where the brushes. The brushes are important, but The second mistake I did, I tried to use one single or two single brushes, and I tried to use them in whole painting, I made a mess. So make sure you have different sizes brushes for different stuff. Here, for example, I have these brushes, uh, which is a size 8 Raphael, normal hairbrush, natural hairbrush, and some synthetic hairbrush as well, different sizes, even though large hake brush as well for big washes. So when I first started watercolor, I always had this kind of medium brushes in there, and I did not know what synthetic hairbrush and what natural hairbrushes. I used to do all the washes and everything with that one, and naturally I made a mess. So I'm going to give you some example in the table there now. I will show you what sort of advantage you can get with your brushes. The brushes are your tools. The better tool you have, the better success, quick success you will have. So I'm going to have a very quick demonstration of brushes, basically two different brushes. One is synthetic hairbrush, which has the hard bristles, and you can easily bend the bristles, come back to this original position. As you can see there, it goes back there, and that's how you can know this is a thin synthetic hair, and this still remains the same. This is a natural hairbrush or sable hair or squirrel hairbrush. They are called mop brush. And synthetic hairbrush, the one I showed you, this is called a round brush. So mop brush is very good for wash. As you can see, it's just spread wide open and it leaves the beads down there. That means those watercolor and pigment and water juices down there. So the next time you try to use that one, use that little bit of water on the next washes, so it gets smoother. And while with the synthetic, you can see it creates some hard edges, created gap because it cannot hold that water in there. It did not create the beads like the one before. So that's why you need to use the proper brushes for proper things. So different kind of mop brush for the washes, and for the detailing and stuff you need synthetic hairbrush. See, the mop brush, I was able to use that small little beads, but here when I try to use that on a synthetic, it created that clear distinction. It's not a smooth transition and not a smooth wash. Okay, now number 3 is your pigment, that means your paint. Most of the times, especially when I started, basically when people start at the beginner level, they start with the illustration, sometimes pen and wash. They use this kind of thing. They're very good for pen and wash. You're going outside and you can have these small little pans full of paints, little bit paints. You can just simply wet them and you can use them. They're very good for your small little illustrations. But remember, if you want to do painting, if you want to advance in your painting, you will need the tubes, like something like that. The pigment quality, these are better than those, because if you can buy, for example, this is from Winsor and Newton, or you can buy from Daniel Smith or Smikke or some other very good brands, Rembrandts and Van Gogh, all of these things. Use those paints always. Do not use for your big, even the medium-sized painting, especially unless you're doing just sketches. Always use these tube paints, and always use the professional quality one. Even if you have the student quality paint, something like that, they won't last long. They get faded with the time. They lose their luminance and they lose their quality. Everything. I'm going to give you a small little example how pigments varies. Even though you can see, if I paint, if I just simply use small little mark with these two, like this one is burnt sienna, one professional and one student quality burnt sienna. Within probably a couple of minutes you can see the differences. So just imagine if you paint one thing and if you keep them for a longer time, months, years, what they would be. Let's take this example. This is the student grade burnt sienna. As you can see, I can tell this is a little bit more yellowish. It shouldn't be like this. It looks like a raw sienna to me. That's number one. Okay, let's take what Winsor Newton looks like. Okay, so it is perfect, a little bit more reddish burnt sienna, and this is how it's supposed to be. So even though they're wet, I can clearly distinguish the quality of the paint, the pure pigment there, and accuracy of the color is there. And it is also a little bit of granulated as I can see, and this is a very smooth one. Okay, when it's dried up, let's have a look, see how they are different. Even though it's just not even a minute, the differences is there. And I can tell you, if it goes a month with the sunlight and everything, the left hand side one will go pale. Okay, number 4. Those 3 I spoke about, those are about your tools like papers, brushes, and pigments. But trust me, papers are the most important thing. If you have good paper, your skill level will go up from here to there. So I would always ask you, if you want to consider just only one thing, consider about the paper. Now come with some technicality. Like when you paint, basically you get frustrated. Why? In most of the times, you get frustrated for the beginner's level because of the amount of water or the pigments. Sometimes we paint with very less water, and sometimes we paint with very huge amount of water. That's the problem. Even with the pigment, in our palette, when you put a pigment on your palette, when you mix a paint, I used to use small amount of paint because I thought they're gonna run out, and in the end I used to have, like, mix more paint, and it ruined the consistency of the painting. I used to sometimes, probably, for example, ultramarine blue. If you just mix some ultramarine blue and you run out of ultramarine blue, you mix again, probably that mix is different from your previous mix. So always use huge puddle amount of paint ready for your initial wash. Even though if you do your middle wash, or even though you're detailing, get huge amount of paint mix on your palette. And another one is, number 5, is using the wrong brush, not the wrong size, wrong brush. As I said, I didn't have any clue when I started what's natural hair brush and what's synthetic hair brush. So everywhere I used to, because synthetic hair brushes were cheaper, even for the washes, I used to have synthetic hair brush. So that's a big no-no. It will leave the mark, because synthetic hair brush bristles are harder, very harsh. It will leave the mark on your paper. Washes needs to be very smooth with the transition of the pigments and colors and layers. I would suggest you to get at least one big mop brush for your initial wash, and that is made of natural hair, which is a squirrel hair or sable, whatever is available at your place. Even though those are expensive, but I would ask you to spend on a little bit on your brush, at least 1 or 2. You can have some good brush, 1 or 2 good brushes for different sizes. Let's take this example. Using small brush, I'm gonna paint those 2 houses. For example, here, one with using small brush, another one using the big brush. So the whole idea of this is using the right brush for the right purpose. When you're painting, if your object is very small and tiny, you can use a small brush. But if your object is large enough, using the small brush everywhere, you're gonna go back there again and again to fill up the spaces, and it will create so many marks there, and your painting will look like very amateur. something like that. See, if I paint the house, I painted the tree with this brush, and this is what I used to do. I used to have one single brush and used to paint everything with that brushes, and with that small little strokes for that whole thing, made that object or painting is a little bit amateurish. Now the next one, I'm using the big brush, because the foliage, they are not very small little objects, they're very big objects, and I'm using the side of the brush. And then if it for the roof of the house, I will still keep using the big brush. Remember one thing, this is very important: make as less mark as you can in your painting. And this was suggested many great artists in the history, to have less mark as possible as you can. If you can do it with a one single stroke, don't make it more than one stroke there. So that's the reason you gotta have correct brush for correct job. Even though you have seen in my previous some of the videos for the foliage, I've abused some of the brushes and made it those bristles just to have those kind of thing. Let's take another example of that. Let's, for example, I'm painting a building, and in that case, if they are square object, I will try to use the proper brush for that one, and that's so easy. But with painting the same thing with the round brush or mob brush will not give me exactly the same effect. As you can see, I can use this simply. I can put down those square brushes, flat brushes, and do the shadows, something like that. And with the round brush, I make the shadows, they will be different. I will have to make more marks in there. And for example, now if I make trees with my synthetic hair brush, I will have to work more and it will not look natural. But here, as you can see, I have abused the brushes with the soft brush, and now I can have some more organic style trees, organic style brush marks in there, which will make your watercolor painting or your journey more easier, as well as your painting will look more professional. For example, I can have the same tree with these soft brushes in there, and if I use that synthetic hair brush and try to do the same tree, it won't be the same. It won't look organic like the one on the right hand side, as you can see there. So that's why you always use the right brush for the right thing. And last but not the least, for the beginners, composition is very important. As a beginner, everything we do, I used to, especially for me, whatever I used to see, I used to exactly try to replicate what's in front of me, without considering the composition. If you know about the rule of third, at least you can maintain single simple composition rule of third. That means just make your paper with 9 different squares, and just make sure your focus point is on one of the 4 squares. Rule of third. And also there are many different composition, probably I will discuss sometimes, and that's for a little bit intermediate and advanced level. But when you're starting, at least try to have some composition, good composition of your painting. Even though you just try to have a look some famous painters' work and see how they put, like where the houses or trees, how they put that, and how did they do the painting. Try to imitate those. That will help you a lot. So if you can have those 6 things, undoubtedly you can go more faster than the way you're going now. So that's pretty much all these six rules. If you can avoid these mistakes, definitely you will go ahead with anyone else who are just starting. Have good paper, have a right size of the brushes ready, use the proper brush for proper cases, use a nice good pigment, and plan your composition. And amount of water is very important as well, how much water you are using. And there's also another very important stuff. for watercolor, that leaves you with the frustration if you don't do it right. That is having the right timing for watercolor. So timing is very important. This is a bonus number 7 one, but it is, I think, a little bit of advanced level. When you have a good hold on your washes, initial washes, then you will be able to figure out what the timing is. The timing is exactly when to put your brush on the paper, looking at the stages of your painting. Is it too wet? If it's too wet, just wait a little bit. We try to hurry. This is what I used to do. After the initial wash, straight away I used to go with the second one. I couldn't wait. So I would say that don't do that. But I'm not doing any demonstrations for watercolor timing. Probably in next some of the videos I'll make one, because that's a huge thing and that is one of the very important stuff. But that's on a little bit of advanced level. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I hope you learned a little bit, and definitely I can tell you, if you can avoid these 6 mistakes, it will help you, and you can be a better painter no sooner than ever. Thank you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.